Millin here from teslataxi.com.au. Just wanted to show you in this video people that are new to renting Teslas for Uber. This is the Turo website, which has some of the cars that we currently have for rent. This one here is the Model Y, as you can see, with the nice big boot area. A bit similar to the Toyota RAV4 in its overall size. The other cars that we have on Turo include the Model 3, which is a more of a Toyota Camry sized car. They cost a similar amount to rent for Uber, so somewhere between roughly $500 and $600 per week, depending on the kilometres you intend to do. Not all of our cars are listed on Turo, but some of them are there if you want to sort of see some pictures and some of the features. This particular car here that I've just clicked on is the Model 3 that we have with FSD. FSD just stands for full self-driving, which means the car will actually stop for red traffic lights if you have that feature enabled. I'll show you through the settings here how to actually activate all of these features. So in autopilot, as standard, it'll just have the cruise control, and then you can turn on the auto steer and hit yes. Same if you have a car with FSD, that'll be an option here. You need to hit yes to the conditions, confirming that you will pay attention as the driver. The other features to make sure that you have enabled if you are wanting to drive safely as an Uber driver is the early collision warning and the assist on the lane keep departure, so the car will even pull you into lane if the autopilot is not enabled or FSD is not enabled. I personally have all of these selected as such. The only thing I don't have selected is the green light traffic chime, which will work on cars with autopilot and FSD. All Tesla cars have autopilot in Australia. FSD is the only real option that gives you extra features, which, as mentioned before, is the traffic lights. So the car we're in now is just the standard autopilot, a Model 3, just a red version of that one. So if we go into drive now and we go for a drive, I'll just put this in a more appropriate zoom for driving. You'll notice up here there is a little camera which monitors your eyes, so you do still have to pay attention to the road with the Tesla. And I'll show you a quick drive with the autopilot features. So people that are driving for Uber, especially down to the Gold Coast, up to Sunshine Coast, etc., quite often use the autopilot feature if they're doing Uber drives, because on the freeway it works very, very effectively to keep you centered in lane. And if you do take FSD, as mentioned, you do have the extra traffic light functions enabled as well. So when we go through some traffic lights up here, I'll show you the differences. So 2 clicks down on the gear selector to enable autopilot, the little blue steering wheel up here. And at these traffic lights that are approaching now, if we didn't pay any attention, it would go straight through the red traffic lights if it's on autopilot. And if you do take a car with FSD, of course, it will actually stop for those traffic lights if you turn on that function. Still shows you whether the traffic lights are red or green in the display here, regardless of which version of the software you have installed. The only difference really for FSD, other than the traffic lights in Australia, is in Sydney and Melbourne. It will also do some of the on-ramp and off-ramp freeway exits. However, in Queensland, there's very few of those that you actually would navigate through with autopilot or FSD taking the exits for you. So in Queensland, we have very few people that actually pay the extra for the FSD. It's usually about $50 a week more for cars that have FSD. Popular in Sydney and Melbourne for the people that want to have the car automatically navigate the freeway interchanges, but yeah, much less relevant in Queensland because our freeways don't have as many of those interchanges that it actually is compatible with in the current version of the software as of early 2024 when I'm recording this. If you'd like to rent one of these cars for Uber and you want to know about charging, the running costs is typically around half of a Toyota Camry, which just passed us here on the right. And sorry, I'll just turn the autopilot back on. The FSD functions do have the traffic light control and the navigate on the freeway. As far as the running costs, as I just mentioned, if you are charging this car at home, typically you're going to be paying $4 per 100 Ks in a Tesla for your cost of power at home, whereas a Toyota Camry is usually double or triple that if it's a hybrid car, and more like 4 times that if it's a non-hybrid. So that's a bit of comparison with the running costs per 100 Ks on the Teslas and the Toyota cars. When we get onto this next road here, I'll put the autopilot on and show you if it does any weird behaviours with cars parked on the side of the road, because some roads that have cars parked on the side that don't actually have a lane marking between you and the cars parked, sometimes it will actually pull up behind those cars. So I'll just show you that here. So as you can see here on the left, there's plenty of cars parked on the side of the road, and there's a dividing line, which means that this car will operate normally. Some of these little curves in the road here can get a bit funny, so sometimes drivers will actually, especially with customers in the car, actually take it out of autopilot if the road's really windy like this. At the moment, it's handling these ones not too badly. Just drop the speed down a little bit here for the school zone. And as you can see with this little curve here in the road, not a problem. We do have some cars in our fleet that have different types of lane keep or self-driving functions available. However, Tesla is much better as far as actually taking the curves in the road than some of those other cars. For example, there's a Hyundai Staria that we have in our rental fleet, and it has a theoretically similar lane keep function. So that was obviously a little bit funny with that particular road curve. But yeah, the Staria is much less functional as far as especially these suburban streets, where the Staria will not really take any significant curves in the road, whereas the Tesla will take even up to a complete U-turn style turn in some of the freeways where you've got the loops and what have you. The Tesla has no limit to its turn angle, whereas something like the Hyundai Staria or some of the Toyotas or some of the Polestars have a lot of trouble with anything more than a few degrees of turn to keep lane, whereas Teslas will do all of those things much more competently. So that's a bit of an overview of how to enable the autopilot and FSD functions on a Tesla if you're renting it. And if you'd like to rent one of these cars to drive for Uber, as mentioned, we do have rates starting from between $500 and $600 per week, depending on the kilometres you intend to do. And we do also have some options for the older cars with rent to own for longer contracts. So by all means, reach out to us on teslataxi.com.au if you'd like to rent a Tesla. And if you'd like to just use one for a few days renting via our links on Turo, I'll put some of those in the show notes for this video so you can get straight to our cars on Turo if you just want a casual booking. And as I said, if you are wanting to drive one of these cars for Uber, you will probably find that the FSD functions, as you can see there, that car was over the dividing line, which is one of the things I wanted to demonstrate a moment ago. So, as I said, if there's cars without a dividing line parked on the side there, a lot of people, especially with passengers in the car on Uber, will actually take it out of the self-driving modes and actually drive manually with these sorts of city streets. But as you can see, the self-driving will actually handle pretty much any circumstance other than sometimes avoiding parked cars without coming to a complete stop is probably the only thing you need to be aware of with these roads where you can have cars parked on the side of the road. And if we go up to the end here, I'm not sure if this road turns around or not, but I'll just give you a demo of what happens at the end of the road, like this particular example here. So that's a roundabout. So even with FSD, you will have to take control through any roundabout. So basically the car will slow down automatically, as you can see here, approaching the roundabout, but as soon as you get to the roundabout itself, you do have to take it out of FSD, which is just a matter of taking control of the car, either by pressing the brake or putting your hands on the steering wheel and applying pressure, and that will take you out of FSD so that you can go back to manual driving and then put it back into FSD or autopilot. With the double click down on the controller, you're hearing those little beeps and you're seeing this little blue steering wheel up here when you are in the self-driving modes of the Teslas. teslataxi.com.au if you'd like to rent a Tesla. Thank you.